Happy New Year to everybody. Don't expect me to say Merry Christmas. Hey, today is my birthday. Happy birthday to you. Right. Okay, so I'm getting to be an old fart. What do you mean getting to be? I am an old fart. All right, we're going to go. We finally got to chapter 5 of volume 2. I just happened to read just now how I'm not supposed to transmit any portion of this electronically or in any fashion, yada, yada, yada. Well, I'm violating that, obviously. I don't think President Ikeda will mind. We're going on to page 157. All right? And this is, as I said, chapter 5 of volume 2. And this is, again, the gohonzon. We've been talking about it already for a couple chapters. All right? So here we go, starting out with page 157. The gohonzon, holding high the banner of propagation of the Lotus Sutra, the great struggle to change the destiny of humankind of faith. Okay, so one thing that the banner of propagation of the Lotus Sutra, what do we really mean by that? Yeah? We're talking about Kosarufu, but what are we really talking about the propagation of?
The law?
Of the law, of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Okay, so this is again to qualify to you that the banner of propagation of Lotus Sutra, in the latter day of the law, we should not see any difference between Nam-myoho Renge-kyo and the Lotus Sutra.
Right.
Every time he's talking about the Lotus Sutra, he's not talking about Shakyamuni's 28th chapter Lotus Sutra. He's talking about the living Lotus Sutra of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo of the latter day of the law. All right? So, holding high the banner of propagation of the Lotus Sutra, the great struggle to change the destiny of humankind of faith. Of faith. All right? So, again, what this all about, what is Kosarufu? It's a struggle to change the faith, the outlook, the actual perception and humanity, the practice that human beings live by, to have respect for all human beings, all humanity, all right, regardless of religion even, all right? Okay, so part 3, page 157. Soka Gakkai Study Department Vice Chief Masaaki Morinaka. The World of Nichiren Daishonin's Writings, this series of books, which there are 4, has now entered its second year, 2003. This series is being translated into many different languages. It has an avid international readership that includes members and non-members alike. That's the great thing about this book. Anybody can read it. Soka Gakkai Study Department Chief Katsuji Saito. It seems to me that in this third year of the 21st century, this was first done and written or translated in 2003. The first it was published. In this third year of the 21st century, issues the affect that lives of the entire human race are emerging at an intense pace. Let me say that again. It seems to me that in this third year of the 21st century, issues that affect the lives of the entire human race are emerging at an intense pace. Now that's 17, 18 years ago, but I'd say the pace has quickened quite a bit. COVID, put it over the edge. A dark pall has fallen over Japan. Internationally, too, there is growing concern that increasingly dark times are ahead for the world at large. Now, why? What had just happened in 2003? What was going on in 2003 when he's reading this and he's talking about it being so dark? We just had another economic crash. The computer 2000 had been right? Okay. Increasing dark times are ahead for the world at large. Now more than ever, the world needs a philosophy of humanism, and especially COVID time, right now.
Yeah.
Right now, 17, 18 years later from when he's talking about this. We need it more than ever.
Right.
President Ikeda, that's why we got to take this all seriously. We've got to actually do it rather than talk about it. All right? SGI President Ikeda, what the world now needs is a philosophy of peace, of dialogue, and of hope. The quintessence of Nichiren Buddhism lies in the fact that it provides this fundamental philosophy. It is the only thing that has a framework that grasps onto everything else that exists. And it is the mission of the SGI to spread this great teaching. To take action for Kosen Rufu with this profound sense of mission is to hold up a torch of hope amid the darkness of mistrust and violence that threatens to envelop our world. The Daishonin declared that the teaching of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo blocks off the road that leads to the hell of incessant suffering for all eternity. We must never allow his words to have been in vain. Oh, I also remember 2003, the Twin Towers had just fallen in New York. Right. Yeah. So, so that's what he's also talking about. He's talking about Al Qaeda and all of the, violence that was actually happening at that time. Saito, page 158. There is a kind of underlying force in human life, a force that moves people to seek happiness, peace, and harmony. That's why there is such a thing as religion. Frankly speaking, everybody that does religion in general is trying to find happiness, peace, and harmony in their life, right? That force is the Buddha nature. That thing that's in all people, whether they chant or not, whether they practice Buddhism or not, whether they know anything about Buddhism. That thing that makes that desire for happiness, peace, and harmony is the Buddha nature of the individual. Because people have within them the power of the Buddha nature. The darker the times, the more earnestly they seek a torch to light the way. So he's surmising in 2003 with all the shit hitting the fan, there are going to be more people looking for some sort of a religious foundation to anchor their lives in. Okay, that's where we all come in. That's why it can't be up to one spokesperson named Daisaku Ikeda to express all this stuff. We have to master it ourselves and also be capable of conveying it in an effective way to accomplish this. He didn't want to be around for another 10, 20 years. Okay? So again, President Ikeda, Nichiren Buddhism is the great teaching capable of awakening the Buddha nature in all people. In other words, it's the only philosophy that acknowledges the true nature of their life, regardless of what they look like in this moment. We don't judge them, oh, you're a Muslim, you're a Christian, you're a this, or you're a that. We look at Nam-myoho Renge-kyo in all things, right? Okay, other philosophies don't have that level of inclusion. Okay, they have sinners and believers. Okay, there are people that are going to go to heaven and a hell of a lot more that aren't. Okay, there are a lot of philosophies that look at life this way. All right, Buddhism is the only one that says, regardless of who you are or how you are, what I'm doing right now is going to help affect a change on you and the world at large. All right, that's what Kosen Rufu is. So he says the 21st century, continuing on page 158, the 21st century has begun with an instance of upsetting attachments and arousing doubts of global proportions. We have seen a succession of tumultuous changes in all areas, including politics and economics. Many people in society suffer from anxiety and a sense of helplessness. Now that's much more so now than it was back in 2003. I'd say with COVID, everybody's freaked out to that point, right? Many people in society suffer from anxiety and a sense of helplessness, more so now than ever. It is, of course, important, President Ikeda continues, that people pool their wisdom and respond calmly and appropriately to address each particular problem that arises. Okay? But reaching a fundamental solution requires the struggle to call forth the Buddha nature of all people. That is because the Buddha nature is the wellspring of hope and the vital force that gives rise to creative energy. And the truth that what all people experience is their karma. Right? So the real fundamental key is that the difficulties that each individual encounters or does not encounter is a reflection of their mission, their karma, the causes they've made. Some may have volunteered to go into the fire in order to prove the fact that they can't be burned. Okay? Others may have a life that expresses fortune in a way that makes other people think, wow, what are you doing? I want to do it too. There are a million different ways. Each person has a different fashion of expressing this through their life, through their chanting of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Everybody's with me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Saito. Pardon me? Where am I? It is, of course, important that people pool their wisdom and respond calmly and appropriately to each particular problem that arises. But reaching a fundamental solution requires the struggle to call forth the Buddha nature in all people. That is because the Buddha nature is the wellspring of hope and the vital force that gives rise to creative energy. And also, the Buddha nature is the ability to change karma in this single moment. Okay, through the simultaneity of cause and effect. We don't have to live a life of paying back all of the karmic retribution. We can expedite that whole process, right? That's the whole point. Saito. It's as the British historian Arnold J. Toynbee said in a passage that you have frequently quoted. This is from, pardon me, I don't know what this is from. Okay, things that make good, okay, this is from Toynbee, I guess. The things that make good headlines attract our attention because they are on the surface of the stream of life, and they distract our attention from the slower, impalpable, imponderable movements that work below the surface and penetrate to the depths. Does everybody understand that? What that just said? Everybody's with me?
Yeah.
Okay, the things that make good headlines attract our attention. The news of the moment, the news of the day takes our attention and occupies our mind, even though very fundamental things that have a very definite, bigger impact on us go by without us paying any attention to them at all. Okay? So that's what that's trying to say. And distract our attention from the slower, impalpable, imponderable movements that work below the surface and penetrate to the depths. But of course, it is really these deeper, slower movements that, in the end, make history. And it is they that stand out huge in retrospect, when the sensational passing events have dwindled in perspective to their true proportions. It is really these slower movements below the surface that create history. Like, Hitler didn't become Hitler overnight.
No.
Okay? It was a process, a slow process of gaining support, and then he put all his diabolical plans in place. I mean, nothing happens like that. Nothing that's like history-changing, life-changing, affecting a broad swath of humanity happens like that. I mean, if you're in a nuclear attack, I guess that would be like that. But what I'm saying is that wouldn't have happened. That wouldn't have happened that quickly. That would have been something that, again, was a process of slow moving undercurrents of national relationships and whatever. The things that we're not paying attention to are the things that really affect our lives more than the things that we get swept up into the moment over, and we give so much focus and attention to, that really aren't that powerful in the grand scheme of things, because they're momentary. And we can see them, and we react to them because we see them. It's the things we don't react to that pile up. Okay? All right, so he says, President Ikeda, Saito, it is really these slower movements below the surface that create history. President Ikeda, this refers to a fundamental transformation in the destiny of humankind. It is a necessity, a slow and gradual process. It is of necessity a slow and gradual process. If you're going to change humankind, that's a lot of minds to change simultaneously at one moment, right? So it's got to be a process, okay? Which is what this Buddhism is revealing itself to be. We have a former day, we have a middle day, we have a latter day. We have Shakyamuni, we have Tentai, we have the Daishonin. All right? We have different disciples in the former day and the middle day than we do in the latter day.
We should go to Kosen Rufu and all these people with the power to change things quickly, huh? The ones that have the money.
Yes, but they
why we don't go and tell them it's not the point?
But again, it wouldn't matter if we told them.
Why?
Because there aren't enough of us for them to decide they need to pay attention, that they need to pay attention to us. Okay? Why does the government of Japan defer to these Soka Gakkai in the fashion that it does? I mean, my God, they're the Komeito party. They're part of the ruling government. Was that the way it was supposed to be? Was that the way it started? Was that the way anybody saw them as the potentiality being there? That had never gotten there if anybody had seen that potentiality. That had been snuffed immediately from the competition. Okay? So the point is that we're constantly in a state of change. Okay? Everything, the truth is the same truth, but the manner in which it's perceived and utilized is constantly changing. Okay? The reality of who the Soka Gakkai is and their mission is now known everywhere. You're not sneak up on anybody anymore with that, right? Okay, so again, going back to Saito on page 158, there is a kind of underlying force in human life, a force that moves people to seek happiness, peace, and harmony. That force is the Buddha nature, because people have within them the power of the Buddha nature. The darker the times, the more earnestly they seek a torch to light the way. President Ikeda, Nichiren Buddhism is the great teaching capable of awakening the Buddha nature of all people. That was the Daishonin's purpose in manifesting the gohonzon, which is why we're having this conversation, to understand the gohonzon, what it really is. The 21st century has begun with an instance of upsetting attachments and arousing doubts of global proportions. We have seen a succession of tumultuous changes in all areas, including politics and economics. Many people in society suffer from anxiety and a sense of helplessness. It is, of course, important that people pool their wisdom and respond calmly and appropriately to address each particular problem that arises. But reaching a fundamental solution requires the struggle to call forth the Buddha nature in all people. That is because the Buddha nature is the wellspring of hope and the vital force that gives rise to creative energy. The only way you would end up with a government doing this is if the karma of the people reflected that fortune. It wouldn't happen just by changing the government. It's got to be something that's reflective of the actual karma. The people have to do this. The human revolution, the initiation of the Buddha nature through practice, through chanting, not just hearing about it. Kosen Rufu takes how much of the population of Earth to accomplish? Do you know? There's a number. It's 1/3. 1/3. 1/3 of what? 8 billion people? Okay? That's a lot more people than we have now. All right? So this influence is such a great influence, it will only be accomplished by the people themselves. That's the whole point. We're not embracing a methodology that's rote memorization and scripted. Do you follow? Okay. So again, Saito. Going to this, we'll skip over 20.
They are doing something. Globalization. What's globalization for people that want
globalization,
to do that?
Globalization is the reality that we've all opened up our economies to a broader state of trade.
They want to do the same with people. Means their culture, their heritage, their everything. Everybody should be.
Who's they?
I don't know.
If you don't know, then how can you say
it's
they?
in the process in front of you.
If you don't know, then how can you say they?
But I don't know, because it's out of yeah, maybe you can know, but it takes a long time to talk about it. But what's going on? There is a force that is pushing in this way, right? They are also telling you are one. They always tell you have to make your own community. It comes from you. It comes from a small group, and then it will extend, and it will be like this. They are telling you this kind of language.
Who's
too.
they? Who's they?
Different kind of groups of thinkers, or people, or philosophers. Or they are doing that.
Well, okay. Would you not agree that now that we're in the 21st century, that everywhere on Earth is more available to and familiar with the reality of other places on Earth than it ever has been in history? Has there ever been a greater period of mixing of different kinds of people than there are right now? In history? No. Okay, so what has happened in that process? A liberalization has actually occurred.
You had this before. You have the changing of civilization through invasion and people are changing with big waves. And you had this for all the time and thousands of years before, and it's going on again now. But the point is, they want to have a global thing.
Again,
Not only a big empire for this one or a big piece of a humanity that is doing something together or to be changed by an exterior force or civilization, whatever. They do something else. They want to do.
What are we doing?
The bigger part we should be
Okay,
there.
what are we doing? Are we doing that?
We should try harder.
We're all
And
trying.
you say
We're
it's
supposed
no
to be
use?
trying as hard as we can, huh?
If we try harder, it's no use because it depends on your karma and who you
Well,
have
once
to meet
again,
and to awake to
if
the
we
goal.
say, if we take the attitude that you're expressing right now, there's no reason to extend ourselves toward the effort of doing Kosa Rufu then. Because nobody's going to really listen, nobody's going to really change, and this is all bullshit, it's all boilerplate, it's a lot of hot air. We're basing all that on the history of everything else we've ever seen. Okay? And this is unlike anything else that's ever preceded it in history.
But if you study the things that went on
I understand
before,
again,
It
all of
should
the
take off your
civilizations
fear.
you just talked about changed based on violence, period. Name one of the things you just referred to that wasn't predicated on a change that occurred because of violence, overcoming, a diminishment of one human being by another human being who decided they're better than the human being. Okay? I'm asking questions because I mean, you want to bring all this stuff up and you want to be challenging about it. I'll be challenging right back at you. There's no change. There's no change in what I'm reading and the reality that exists. Answer my question. Who is they? Tell me any of those that occurred without violence. Any of those political changes or regional changes and who was in power? All that kind of thing. Where? When?
We are going to be the first one.
We're going to be the very first one. Why?
We have a mission.
Because we have a philosophy that actually will fit with all other philosophies. That is not in conflict with any other philosophy.
And it's doable.
It's doable. And it doesn't reject any other philosophy. It says that all those philosophies are part of this great myo. Okay? This absolute myo. Okay?
so in France is going something, there is a conflict between the fact that France is looking at itself as a laïc country, means you can believe what you want,
Right.
but we have the community, we are living in a community, and we don't care, it's private. You can do whatever you want, the way you want, but don't bring it on the public place.
Right,
It's
which
a
is why
kind
the
of thinking
Soka
like
Gakkai,
that.
well, the Soka Gakkai is considered a cult in France. So, maybe that's why, huh?
But they can practice.
Yeah, they can practice. Of course they can practice, but as we've
But
already
you are
seen,
free to do what you want.
you're not free to do what you want if you're not allowed to collectively gather. If you're not allowed to proselytize.
It's private. It should not be done in the public place. So
Okay.
everybody can accept the other one.
Good for you. Good for you. Are you
It's
a
what-
Buddhist? Okay. Do you
It's
believe
what
in
the-
Do you believe in Kosen Rufu? Then you explain to me. Then what are you talking about if you believe in Kosen Rufu? How does this all fit in together? What you're saying, what's coming out of you, is obviously heartfelt opinions. How
they are
does
not
that?
opinions, but they are what they are struggling about. Okay, how can they change this? Seeing themselves this way.
How can they change this? They change their freaking karma. How do they change their karma? They take responsibility for their own lives. They have to take the same actions that I do.
But we are observers of people that don't do that.
So, what's that got to do with Kosen Rufu?
Suffering. It creates suffering for so many people.
They through karma. They through
Dear,
karma.
I mean, do you think that that's just being divined upon them by some god?
No.
Then what's the basis of them experiencing that? Unfairness?
Stupidity.
Even stupidity would be a reasonable excuse. You're still blind to the truth.
We have
And basically, what you're saying right now shows me you are as well. And I'm not trying to be that in your face over it, but what you're saying is very opinionated, like you know what you're talking about. And so I'm giving you a chance to express that. I still want to know, who is they?
Because it's like how do you say it's
I mean, I know your frustration. What I'm trying to explain to you is what Buddhism prescribes as the solution, and you're rejecting the solution.
no, I don't reject anything. I'm just speaking about things.
No, you're saying you're talking about the way things are, and nobody's talking about the way things are. When we talk about Kosarufu, am I talking about a third of the population already embracing this teaching? No, I'm not. I'm saying what we have to go to get to that point. Okay? And what that point will bring naturally based on the teaching. It's called the pacification of the land through the propagation of the law. That's what actually it translates to. Okay? So how are you going to, if it translates to that, how are you going to pacify the land any other way? It's only through the propagation of the law, dear.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can talk and look at governments and go, you know what? In 15 or 20 minutes, you could be overthrown and not even be relevant. Why do I want to base anything on this moment? It's always changing. It's never the same.
Yes.
Let's see what President Ikeda has to say about all this.
Yeah.
Okay, continuing wherever I was. Hang on. Does anybody remember where I was? Oh, here we go. Okay. Saito.
With the I'm sorry I disturbed you.
No problem. You didn't disturb me.
I just-
You didn't disturb me. Actually, again, what you said didn't disturb me. It's the reality that you could say it. And by virtue of that, me knowing that there are many other people that could as well. My brain doesn't work that way anymore. Okay? My brain almost has to stop and think to perceive what you could be thinking. Okay? So, excuse me for that comeback. But Saito. Okay. And I've already read this, but of course it is these deeper, slower movements, such as Kosen-rufu, rather than that was the whole point of what I was just reading. The Kosen-rufu will take time, and it will take determination, and it will take effort, and it won't happen because we talk about it. Then it's happy talk. Then it's just like every other freaking philosophy. It's a bunch of people saying a bunch of bullshit, and they don't ever do any of it, and none of it ever really actually comes to pass. And no one really benefits, and the change you're looking for never occurs. Okay? What we're talking about is change that actually occurs, and not only does it occur, it stays that way forever. Unlike the history you just reflected back on. Okay? Where violence was changing this or that here and there. Once Kosen-rufu happens, that violence never happens again. That's the eradication of that violence by the propagation of the law. The enlightened nature of such a fundamental, huge portion of humanity goes into a different realm of human opportunity and karmic reflection. Okay?
Yeah.
So, so he says, President Ikeda, this refers to a fundamental transformation in the destiny of humankind. That's what we're talking about. A fundamental transformation in the destiny, as you've reflected. The destiny has not reflected that, but destiny is something that's in front, not behind. It is of a necessity a slow and gradual process. But this steady movement actually changes history. Therefore, it is important that we steadily and concretely keep acting to create change. Now, here's the thing. You know, to a young person, they've got time. To me, I'm already looking at like, will it happen in my lifetime? I'm not really sure. But do I care if it happens in my lifetime? No. Because I will have done what I'm supposed to do to make sure that I created that foundation to finally come to fruition, which is called a mission, right? Which is, what did I do? I said I would do that in preparation for what I saw coming based on my faith, right? I uphold a vow, which will be a very important part of what President Kate is going to explain here, right? He says, with that in mind, therefore it is important that we steadily and concretely keep acting to create change. That's what I'm talking about. With that in mind, let us put increasing energy into telling people about the humanistic philosophy of Nichiren Buddhism, whether they listen to us or not, whether they practice or not. That's not the point. All right? Morinaka, today let us continue our discussion on the gohonzon, which is the very core of the teachings of this humanistic Buddhism. Page 159, the object of devotion for Kosen Rufu. President indicated, Nichiren Daishonin states that he inscribed the gohonzon as the banner of propagation of the Lotus Sutra. In other words, it is the object of devotion for Kosen Rufu. That is, for accomplishing the for accomplishing the wide propagation of the mystic law. In the real aspect of the gohonzon, he says, how wondrous it is that, around 200 years and more into the latter day of the law, I was the first to reveal, as the banner of propagation of the Lotus Sutra, this great mandala that even those such as Nagarjuna and Vasubandhu, Tiantai and Myolo were unable to express. Bottom of page 159, President Ikeda continues, carrying on the Daishonin spirit, the Soka Gakkai is propagating the object of devotion for Kosen Rufu, that Nichiren Daishonin, while enduring great persecution, inscribed for the happiness of the people of the latter day. Now, do you understand what he's talking about now? Is he talking about the gohonzon in the altar? No. What he's talking about right now is not the gohonzon in the altar. There are a lot of others, Nichiren Shoshu does gohonzons that go in altars. He's talking about the real gohonzon, okay? Carrying on the Daishonin spirit, the Soka Gakkai, bottom of page 159, is propagating the object of devotion for Kosen Rufu. Nam-myoho Renge-kyo that exists inside each human being, all right? While enduring great persecution, the Daishonin, while enduring great persecution, is scribed for the happiness of the people of the latter day, because we were able to bring forth this gohonzon by virtue of the one in the altar. Saito, Nichiren Daishonin secured the Kosen Rufu of the entity of the law, and now the Soka Gakkai is actualizing the Kosen Rufu of substantiation. The substantive realization of Kosen Rufu, the substantive, the reality of it, not just words, not just a goal, not just a dream. President Ikeda, these two undertakings are the mission of the bodhisattvas of the earth. To deepen our understanding of the gohonzon, I'd like to confirm the profound significance of Nichiren Daishonin's inscription of the gohonzon by basing our discussion this time on the latter half of his writing, The Object of Devotion for Observing the Mind. Morinaka. While the theme of the first half of that work is observing the mind, the theme of the second half is the object of devotion. Here, the Daishonin explains how he manifested the gohonzon, the object of devotion that enables us, through embracing faith in it, to achieve the observation of the mind, bringing forth that gohonzon that exists in our lives. Specifically, he describes the form of devotion that he manifested. He explains that the gohonzon is the great teaching of Buddhism of sowing, implicit in the depths of the lifespan chapter of the Lotus Sutra. It's not Shakyamuni's teaching of the 28th chapter Lotus Sutra that we can read as the words on the surface. He explains that the gohonzon is the great teaching of the Buddhism of sowing, implicit in the depths of the lifespan 16th chapter Lotus Sutra. And he affirms that the latter day of the law, he affirms that in the latter day of the law, the bodhisattvas of the earth will appear and establish the gohonzon. And we've all appeared. I mean, exactly what he thought about in 13th century Japan, this is what will go forward. It's actualized, right? So we have that ability to see that proof of actual fact. Okay? So Kosen Rufu as a concept has already been actualized in a small way, by what we've experienced, and we can take total faith in its ability to be achieved.
Right.
You can be as bummed out as you want to be about all the bad shit. I say it's all going to get wiped out. Okay? The ceremony in the air and Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Page 160, Saito. First, I would like to ask about the Daishonin's use of the ceremony in the air of the Lotus Sutra as a model for the format of the gohonzon. And everybody understands that, right? Okay? The format of the gohonzon is really the Daishonin divining what he envisioned and saw and what he read in the ceremony in the air and implicitly put it on there, okay? So he said, President Ikeda, strictly speaking, the Daishonin models the gohonzon after the ceremony in the air as depicted in the sutra when the lifespan chapter is being expounded. The lifespan chapter reveals the eternity of the mystic law on 3 levels: the eternity of the Buddha of true effect, the eternity of living beings, true cause, and the eternity of the land, true land. It is only with the Buddha's preaching of the lifespan chapter that it is possible for the first time to identify and reveal the great eternal law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. And so what did he just explain there? Does he model the gohonzon on the ceremony in the air? No. On the ceremony in the air as of the 16th chapter, when the bodhisattvas of the earth have already come out in the emerging from the earth chapter, okay? So we're talking about Kosen Rufu of the latter day. All right? Because did the bodhisattvas of the earth come back in the former or the middle day after they've made their advent in the... No. Okay? So that's what he's talking about, because we're Nam-myoho Renge-kyo Buddhists. Okay? We're disciples of the Daishonin in his original identity. All right? Mornaka. Yeah. I read all that, right? Yeah. It is only with the Buddha's preaching of the lifespan chapter that it is possible for the first time to identify and reveal the eternal great law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Mornaka. This revelation of the eternity of the mystic law on 3 levels is known as the integration of the 3 mystic principles. You remember when I got into the 10 mystic principles last week?
Yeah.
What was I talking about? Same thing as, basically, as the Dharma realm. Okay, the first 3 of the 10 mystic principles. It's the first 3 of the 10 factors. This revelation of This revelation of the eternity of the mystic law on 3 levels is known as the integration of the 3 mystic principles. In the object of devotion for observing the mind, the Daishonin says, the Sahe world, Shakyamuni Buddha revealed in the lifespan chapter is the eternal pure land. Okay, everybody understands that, right? Mm-hmm. So what did you just qualify there and just smash to shit all of the Buddhist teachings prior to that? There's no Buddha land. Mm-hmm. Okay, the Sahe world is the Buddha land.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what that just said. Mm-hmm. The Sahe world, Shakyamuni revealed in the lifespan chapter, is the eternal pure land, just like we have right now, impervious to the 3 calamities and to the cycle of the 4 kalpas. Impervious, it can't be destroyed. Okay, so I don't give a shit what those guys think they're going to do. That was my point. Those leaders, all right? I'm a Buddha. I don't deal on that level. The Buddha neither has entered into extinction, because if I deal on that level, I'm going to be too bummed out. There's no way for me to accomplish what I have to accomplish. I have to know that there's a pathway based on the teaching that allows me to do this, even though I'm just a common mortal. I'm just a regular Tom. I'm just a regular guy. Okay? The Sahe world Shakyamuni revealed in the lifespan chapter is the eternal pure land impervious to the 3 calamities and to the cycle of the 4 kalpas. The Buddha neither has entered into extinction in the past, nor will be born in the future. And the same is true of his disciples. This means that their lives are perfectly endowed with the 3,000 worlds. That is, with the 3,000 realms of existence. That means they came into this world with everything that it takes to be the Buddha. They don't have to meet a Buddha and have that Buddha do something to bestow upon them some super significant capacity. Just as they are what I just read. President Ikeda, the significance of the ceremony in the air becomes clear with the integration of the three mystic principles in the lifespan chapter. The ceremony in the air symbolically reveals that the Buddha, the living beings, and the land are all entities of the mystic law. That was the three principles: the Buddha, us, the living beings, and the land. Those are the first of the three. And when we do what we're doing, we've integrated all of that, right? Because now we've not, the law is already pure. We've purified ourselves by embracing the law, okay? And now by embracing that law, we purify our environment. Don't forget, it's our environment we're talking about when we speak of this. There are many environments available to many people. They're not all as nice as the rest, as some of the others, right? Okay, so this is all about, we build our own fortune. The significance of the ceremony in the air becomes clear with the integration of the three mystic principles in the lifespan chapter. The ceremony in the air symbolically reveals that the Buddha, the living beings, and the land are all entities of the eternal mystic law. There is no separation. In other words, the eternal mystic law, which the Daishonin manifested as Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, it pervades the entire universe. When it says pervades, it's the building block, it's the fundamental foundation of everything. Saito, since the eternal mystic law itself is indivisible, and when it says eternal, what would that say? Uncreated. Right? Okay. Since the eternal mystic law itself is indivisible, Shakyamuni expressed it in the Lotus Sutra as the ceremony in the air. Shakyamuni expressed it in the Lotus Sutra as the ceremony in the air. A realm transcending reality and time and space. Okay, so what was described is a reality that transcends. No, pardon me. It's a realm transcending reality, time and space. So you can't look at it as anything other than figurative and something informative. It wasn't a place and a time. It's the ceremony in there is still going on right now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So President Ikeda, the ceremony in the air is a symbolic expression transcending time and space of the eternal law that is one with the eternal Buddha, which is endowed with universal value. We can glean from the various descriptions. We can glean from the various descriptions of the ceremony in the air. First, there is the image of an enormous treasure tower soaring skyward as though to connect heaven and earth. And of course, as it's expressed in the Lotus Sutra, how big is the treasure tower? 1/3 the size of the freaking planet. Okay, so, I mean, how do you even get it to sit on there straight? It must have a very broad base. Okay. First of all, there is an image of an enormous treasure tower soaring skyward as to connect heaven and earth. This expresses the eternal mystic law as the central axis of the universe. The eternal mystic law, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the original cause, the original effect, the original moment, okay, as the axis, because everything comes out of that causality. All right? All right. So, Morinaka, we touched on this in the earlier study series, Dialogue on the Wisdom of the Lotus Sutra, but the ideologist Shuntaro Matsuyama, in his work Hasu to Hokekyo, the Lotus Sutra and the Lotus and the Lotus Sutra, makes an observation about the treasure tower of the many treasures Buddha, which appears from beneath the earth. He says that it is a transfiguration of an image from ancient Indian legend, that of a long stem of a crimson lotus. That of the long stem of a crimson lotus crowned with a receptacle full of seeds. He also identifies it with the axis mundi, axis of the world. Okay? And again, what President Keita is going to do now, he's going to get in, he's going to touch on a few people outside of SGI or outside of Buddhism that help corroborate the concept that he's expressing as the Buddhism of the sun. Okay? The Soka philosophy. All right? The treasure tower of many treasures Buddha, a lotus flower of cosmic scale, is a symbol of the fundamental energy and power of the universe, is a symbol of the fundamental energy and power of the universe. And Shakyamuni seated in the treasure tower conjures an image of the sun shining in the heavens. Saito, the lotus flower's many seeds which, nurtured by sunlight and soil, sprout, grow, bloom, and bear fruit, symbolize the children of the Buddha. They indicate all living beings, not just all believers, all living beings. In particular, the bodhisattvas of the earth, the practitioners of the Lotus Sutra who believe in and embrace the mystic law. President Keita, the treasure tower of the ceremony in the air represents the mystic law, the fundamental law of the universe, as a pillar supporting the world. It also symbolizes the great vehicle, or Mahayana, that transports living beings from the earth, reality, to heaven, the highest ideal. It also indicates the sun of compassion and wisdom, which guides and nurtures the children of the Buddha with its light. Morinaka, that was a little bit of a flowery paragraph for me, but there you go. This is all, again, trying to make everything relevant in terms of its relativity.
Right.
Morinaka, this corresponds to the Buddha's three virtues of sovereign, teacher, and parent. President Keita, the Daishonin's Buddhism teaches that this fundamental mystic law, all this stuff we're talking about, in reality is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Myoho Renge-kyo literally meaning the Lotus Sutra of the mystic law. The Daishonin's name Nichiren also combines the Chinese characters of sun, Nichi, and lotus, Ren, of Renge. Buddhism expounds that the treasure tower of many treasures Buddha appears at any time and in any place where the Lotus Sutra is being preached. Okay? So, should we be thinking that this is only earth? No. Okay? This too symbolizes the universal power of the Lotus Sutra that transcends time and space. Morinaka, because so what this is basically saying is, in the entire universe, in the entire phenomenal realm, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is the key to all philosophy, of all understanding of the truth and the reality of reality, no matter who you are, where you live. Okay? You could be a space person, and it would still be Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. This isn't just for Earth. Morinaka. Through the three-time purification of the land, Shakyamuni unifies all the worlds in the 10 directions into a single vast Buddha land, free of conflict and divisiveness, where people are liberated from all suffering. This can be taken to mean that through the power of the Lotus Sutra, the actual strife-filled Sahe world manifests as a realm of peace and happiness. Did everybody understand that? The hell of reality on earth as it exists now will someday become a heaven in regards to living in it. President Ikeda, furthermore, the testimony of many treasures of Buddha of the past can be viewed as indicating the universality of the mystic law throughout time. The testimony of all the Buddhas who are Shakyamuni's emanations from the worlds in the 10 directions indicates the universality of the mystic law throughout space. Everybody's with me? Universal throughout time, universal throughout space, back to the original state. The assembly of the three Buddhas, Shakyamuni, many treasures, and the Buddhas of the 10 directions, which are all emanations of Shakyamuni, right? In the ceremony in the air indicates that all Buddhas are one, based on the mystic law. Okay? So we shouldn't see this separation. You should understand that when I keep talking about the mind of the Buddha, the mind of Nichiren, that is the oneness of all Buddhas throughout the three existences of past, present, and future. The one mind of Nichiren is the mind that we're referring to when we talk about the Buddha. The Buddha mind of Nichiren is the Buddha mind he's the original teacher. Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is the original predication of all Buddhists. That's what this has just said. All Buddhas achieve Buddhahood through Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Anything else is an expedient means, all right? The assembly of the three Buddhas, Shakyamuni, many treasures, and the Buddhas of the 10 directions in the ceremony of the year indicates that all Buddhas are one based on the mystic law. So why are you able to chant as a common mortal and pull all the shit off that you can just like that based on your faith? There's no separation between you and all the other Buddhas. We all share in the same fortune. We're all Buddhas. There's no more fortune to share in than that. Okay, there's no greater fortune to share in than that. All right, we are the ones that decide to manifest the reality that we make our advent in order to prove the power of the law. Don't complain about your karma. You made your karma. You know, God didn't send you here. Nichiren didn't send you here. Daisaku Ikeda didn't send you here. You sent yourself here, and and right now you are in the process of sending yourself someplace else also. Simultaneous with what you're doing right now, you're making all the causes that are going to carry over in your next existence and will affect and impact who you're around, where you are, and everything else. Yes. Okay? So we get to do this over and over and over again. It's so much goddamn fun. Yeah. Isn't that the greatest? President Ikeda on page 164. Yes, but while the form of the ceremony in the air alone may convey the solemnity and magnificence of an eternal world that transcends the ordinary, it does not suffice to express the law itself. That is why the lifespan chapter presents the three mystic principles together, a concept referred to as the integration of the three mystic principles. Well, it's about time you told us that. You've already said it 3 times. Indicating that the mystic law encompasses the Buddha, the living beings, and the land. Saito. Those who hear the lifespan chapter expounded during the ceremony in the air become enlightened to the eternal mystic law pervading their own lives and the universe. President Ikeda. In the essential teaching, second half of the Lotus Sutra, the eternal law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is revealed through the ceremony in the air and the preaching of the lifespan chapter. The important point is the law and how it is revealed. Morinaka. If we were to compare, is everybody with me?
Yes.
Okay. If we were to compare the ceremony in the air to a secret code, then the lifespan chapter of the essential teaching would be the key to deciphering that code, and the deciphered message would be Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Everybody followed that? That analogy?
Yeah.
Okay. President Ikeda, in the object of devotion for observing the mind. So everything it's reverse osmosis. You know, it's not everything coming from something smaller and getting bigger. It's everything in the vastness all boiling down to this one thing, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. If we were to, President Ikeda, in the object of devotion for observing the mind, the Daishonin says that Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is the heart of the essential teaching, going to the Gosho. Shakyamuni did not transmit the 5 characters of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the heart of the essential teaching of the Lotus Sutra, even to the bodhisattvas, Manjushri, and Medicine King, let alone to any lesser disciples. Let me say that again. Shakyamuni, this is a point that the Daishonin is making in the object of devotion for observing the mind. He says, did you ever think about why Shakyamuni, in the ceremony in the air, didn't transfer any of this to anybody but the bodhisattvas of the earth? That's what he's really talking about. Shakyamuni did not transmit the 5 characters of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the heart of the essential teaching of the Lotus Sutra, even to the bodhisattvas Manjushri and Medicine King, let alone to any lesser disciples. Right. He summoned from beneath the earth the great bodhisattvas as numerous as the dust particles of 1,000 worlds, and as he preached the 8 chapters of the 15th through the 22nd chapters, and as he preached the 8 chapters, transferred it solely to them, not even to himself. He doesn't include himself. There's no formal inclusion of Shakyamuni from the perspective that we have here, right? We, all true Buddhists, teach Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. They don't teach an expedient means. In the ceremony of the air, Shakyamuni points to the eternal mystic law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the original state. This is the teaching for the enlightenment of all people after his passing. Shakyamuni, who who revealed through this teaching the entirety of what he wished to pass on, entrusted its future propagation to his true disciples who would fully inherit his legacy. Saito, this is the meaning of transmission. Also, at the ceremony were such outstanding disciples as Bodhisattva Manjushri, who was called the Dharma Prince, and was revered as highly as the Buddha, and the Bodhisattva Medicine King, who, in the encouraging devotion 13th chapter of the Lotus Sutra, makes a solemn vow to propagate the sutra in the evil age after the Buddha's death. Nevertheless, Shakyamuni passed over them and instead entrusted this teaching solely to the Bodhisattvas of the earth. Morinaka, the Bodhisattvas of the earth appear only in the 8 chapters from emerging from the earth, 15th, to the entrustment, chapter 22nd. It is in these chapters that Shakyamuni not only called forth these bodhisattvas and revealed his true identity as the Buddha who attained enlightenment in the remote past, numberless major world system dust particle kalpas ago, but he also indicated the fundamental cause for his having attained enlightenment in the remote past, and entrusted the bodhisattvas he summoned with the propagation of the mystic law after his passing, right? Because it's in the 16th chapter, he talks about great universal wisdom, excellence, Dad. Okay? President Ikeda, in these 8 chapters, Shakyamuni clarified the teaching to be spread after his demise, and indicated those who should spread it. From the standpoint of his role as an incarnation of Bodhisattva superior practices, the leader of the Bodhisattvas of the earth, who are entrusted with this teaching, the Daishonin directly reveals Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the fundamental law of the depths of the lifespan chapter, and manifested the gohonzon as the clear mirror that we should embrace. Okay, so again, from the standpoint, top of page 166, from the standpoint of his role, a role, not identity, as an incarnation of Bodhisattva superior practices, so we can all take on these roles, because there's nothing more about achieving that role other than doing it. You don't have to karmically be it. You just have to accomplish the same thing with the same determination, having taken the same vow. That's how it's actually done. It's only done by those that, I'll do it. Okay? It's not a destiny. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's a fortune. From the standpoint of his role as an incarnation of Bodhisattva superior practices, the leader of the Bodhisattvas of the earth who are entrusted with this teaching, the Daishonin directly revealed Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the fundamental law, in the depths of the lifespan chapter, and manifested the gohonzon as the clear mirror that we should embrace in the latter day. If he had taught only Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, without any background explanation. In other words, if he would have just said, like any of those other guys that were Shakyamuni's contemporaries, the Jain guy, whoever, any of those other philosophies. If he would have just said, here's my new thing, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, and watch how powerful it is. This is going to explain what the shortcoming of that would have been. It had to be based on a continuous line of everything that had preceded it, so that he could document with documentary proof, say, what I'm saying hasn't been validated yet, but it's totally in keeping with everything that's been said. All right? He says, if the Daishonin had taught Nam-myoho Renge-kyo by itself, people would probably have understood it simply as indicating devotion to the Lotus Sutra, which many people still think it is. All right? They just think it's devotion to Shakyamuni Buddha, and it's not. All right? If the Daishonin had taught Nam-myoho Renge-kyo by itself, people would probably have understood it simply as indicating devotion to the Lotus Sutra. They would not have grasped that Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is the eternal law that is the foundation and ultimate reality of the universe. President Ikeda, in terms of the essential versus the theoretical teaching, the fundamental law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo constitutes the essential, and the ceremony in the air, the theoretical. Why? In terms of the essential versus the theoretical, God, this is so cool. I don't believe you didn't get it. Listen. In terms of the essential versus the theoretical teaching, okay, the fundamental law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo constitutes the essential, and the ceremony in the air, the theoretical. The Daishonin uses the theoretical to reveal the essential. What's he saying? That was then, this is now. Shakyamuni's teaching was theoretical. That's why he calls it theoretical Ichinen Sons, and over and over again, even though, Tentai came up with it without it being on the surface, all right? So, ceremony in the air. Who attained Buddhahood based on the ceremony in the air? Nobody! The bodhisattvas of the earth were already Buddhas. He says right there in the 16th chapter. They're my original disciples. They're my equals, right? Ceremony in the air prophesies Buddhahood for a bunch of people that weren't Buddhists. All right? Nam-myoho Renge-kyo creates Buddhas in your present form. Do you understand? There's the difference. There's the difference. The ceremony in the air doesn't do that. It doesn't do that. All right? You have to go into the Makashikan, great concentration and insight, and a whole different deviation from the basis of what it's saying on the surface to what Tentai said in order to get anything beyond theoretical out of that teaching. All right? You have to be pretty laid back, smart monk. All right? How long have I been talking? 1 hour. This is only 2 pages. Okay, so I'm going to continue. The mandala endowed with the 10 worlds, Saito, that the Daishonin uses the Lotus Sutra ceremony in the air to reveal the meaning of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is apparent from the format of the gohonzon. Ikeda, in the object of devotion for observing the mind, the Daishonin discusses the layout of the gohonzon in detail. Morinaka, he says, the true object of devotion is described as follows. The treasure tower sits in the air above the Sahe world that the Buddha of the essential teaching identified as the pure and eternal land. Myoho Renge-kyo appears in the center of the tower with the Buddha Shakyamuni and many treasures seated to the right and left and flanking them, the 4 bodhisattvas followed by followers of Shakyamuni, led by superior practices Manjushri, Maitreya, and other bodhisattvas, who are all followers of the 4 bodhisattvas, are seated below. All the other major and minor bodhisattvas, whether they are disciples of the Buddha in his transient status or of the Buddhas of the other 9 of the other worlds, are like commoners kneeling on the ground in the presence of nobles and high-ranking court officials. The Buddhas who gathered from the other worlds in the 10 directions all remain on the ground, showing that they are only temporary manifestations of the eternal Buddha and that their lands are transient and not eternal and unchanging. Excuse me, there are other Buddhas like many treasures, not the emanation Buddhas I was talking about a minute ago. I made a mistake there. I'm going to read this again because he's going to talk about it at length here in the next couple pages. This is from, again, the Gosho. The true object of devotion. The Daishonin is qualifying it with that true object of devotion. The object of devotion for the latter day of the law is what that says. The true object of devotion is described as follows. The treasure tower, Namu-myoho Renge-kyo Nichiren, sits in the air above the Sahe world that the Buddha of the essential teaching, okay, now which is that Buddha? The Buddha of the essential teaching of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is Nichiren. Okay? Okay, listen to how this is written, because this is written in very cleverly. Let me slow it. That's why I wanted to reread it. The treasure tower sits in the air above the Sahe world that the Buddha of the essential teaching identified as the pure and eternal land. So we've now already gone from the Sahe world to it's now the third of the 10 mystic principles, right? Myoho Renge-kyo appears in the center of the tower with the Buddha Shakyamuni and many treasures seated to the right and the left at the top, like we see it on the gohonzon, and flanking them to their sides, flanking them, kind of going off on this way, are the 4 bodhisattvas, which are superior practices, boundless practices, whatever. Right.
Okay.
You know who I'm talking about. Perfect practices. All right. Okay. Followers of Shakyamuni led by superior practices, period. All right. So, again, Myoho Renge-kyo appears in the center of the tower with the Buddha Shakyamuni and many treasures seated to the right and left, flanking them the four bodhisattvas, followers of Shakyamuni, led by superior practices, period. Manjushri, Maitreya, and the other bodhisattvas, who are all followers of the four bodhisattvas. So what did that just say?
The followers?
They're all followers of who? Manjushri, Maitreya, and all these other badasses and Buddhas that are there are all followers of the bodhisattvas of the earth.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say this says. Okay? He doesn't diminish in any way Tahoe, Shakyamuni, or the four great bodhisattvas, or any of the other bodhisattvas of the earth. Do you understand? Because they're all included in the four great bodhisattvas. Do you understand? All right, so all the other major and minor bodhisattvas, whether they are disciples of the Buddha in his transient status, while he was the Buddha that attained Buddhahood under the Bodhi tree, or whether he's talking about, the Buddha that is revealed in the lifespan chapter, whether they're disciples of the Buddha in his transient status or of the Buddhas of the other worlds, are like commoners kneeling on the ground in the presence of nobles and high-ranking court officials. The Buddhas who gathered from the other worlds in the 10 directions all remain on the ground, showing that they are only temporary manifestations of the eternal Buddha and that their lands are transient. Why? Where did they come from, all those Buddhas? They were all in Buddha lands. Okay, right? That's where all those Buddhas were. The ones that were emanation Buddhas, they were all in Buddha lands. Who lives in a Buddha land? Is that the Sahe world? Is a Buddha land a Sahe world? Only with the addition of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo and the revealing of the true identity of everything else. Right? Okay, so that's the whole point. Are only temporary manifestations. So don't be looking at Shakyamuni or any of this other stuff as outside of yourself. All right? Are only temporary manifestations of the eternal Buddha, and that their lands are transient, not eternal and unchanging. They don't reflect the life condition of the inhabitant. President Ikeda informed the gohonzon depicts a multi-tiered structure with the treasure tower of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo as its central axis. The Daishonin also indicates this in his writing, The Real Aspect of the Gohonzon. Saito, the object of devotion for observing the mind, the Daishonin mentions Shakyamuni many treasures, Bodhisattva's superior practices, and the other leaders of the Bodhisattvas of the earth, the Bodhisattvas of the theoretical teaching, and all the Buddhas of the 10 directions as among the assembled beings. In the real aspect of the Gohonzon, however, he mentions also the voice hearers and other beings of the 6 paths, and indicates that countless beings of the 10 worlds are assembled in the Gohonzon. So this is to make sure that you understand that everything is included in the Gohonzon. Even if you had a full listing of everything mentioned in the ceremony in the air, it's not limited to just that inventory. He says, in this way, the Daishonin reveals that Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is the great teaching that embraces all living beings, and that the entire universe constitutes a harmonious order, cosmos, that has Nam-myoho Renge-kyo as its central axis and is sustained by Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Ikeda, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo in the center indicates the fundamental truth. Since Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is the central axis of life in the universe, it is expressed by the treasure tower that soars up in the center of the ceremony in the air. On either side are the Buddhas Shakyamuni and many treasures. These Buddhas indicate the functions of Myoho Renge-kyo. Which ones? Kyoji Myogo, fusion of reality and wisdom, right? Many treasures is the Buddha of the past, signifying eternal truth. He signifies the law as the object of wisdom, or that which wisdom perceives. Shakyamuni is the Buddha of the present. He represented the actual wisdom to perceive the law. Indeed, these are two aspects of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. The two Buddhas seated together indicates the fusion of reality and wisdom. Exactly what we do by embracing the gohonzon as Buddhas just as they are. All right? Morinaka. The Daishonin says, what then are these two elements of reality and wisdom? They are simply the 5 characters of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the essential nature of all things. Saito, this corresponds to the eternal and unchanging truth. Now, what would be eternal and unchanging truth? Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Doesn't have a beginning, doesn't have an end, okay, and describes everything. These correspond. Okay, the Daishonin says, again, Morinaka, what then are these two elements of reality and wisdom as we try to figure out this heavy concept of Kyochi Myogo and fusion with the gohonzon, the fusion of reality and wisdom? Our life and the life of the gohonzon, that's what this is all about. That's what he's talking about here, right? They are simply the 5 characters of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the Daishonin says. This isn't really that much of rocket science, is what the Daishonin is explaining. Saito then goes on. He says, these correspond to the eternal and unchanging truth revealed in the theoretical teaching and the wisdom that functions in accordance with changing circumstance revealed in the essential teaching. So okay, so if the eternal and unchanging truth is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, what's the wisdom that functions in accordance with changing circumstance revealed in the essential teaching? What is that? What is wisdom that functions in accordance with changing circumstances? That's me as the Buddha. That's you as the Buddha. That's that's the way it continues. All right? There's the original state and the manner in which it manifests in each moment of reality everywhere.
Right.
Okay? And only manifests through humans.
Yes.
Through living beings.
Right.
I don't know if we'll all be called humans everywhere. All right? These correspond, Saito, one last time, 168. I'll get to 169 and they'll put me 20 pages or 10 pages in. These correspond to the eternal and unchanging truth revealed in the theoretical teaching and the wisdom that functions in accordance with changing circumstances revealed in the essential teaching. President Ikeda, that is naturally so, he says. Say something difficult. The important point is that we make neither, and this is the important point I want to make. That's why I wanted to read this far. The important point is that we make neither Shakyamuni nor many treasures our object of devotion. Shakyamuni and many treasures both became Buddhas through Nam-myoho Renge-kyo.
Right.
It is always Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the fundamental teaching for attaining Buddhahood, that we make our object of devotion. In terms of the layout of the gohonzon, this is clear from the fact that Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is written large down the center with Shakyamuni and many treasures positioned to either side as little characters at the top, right? Morinaka, moreover, superior practices and the other leaders of the bodhisattvas of the earth flank Shakyamuni. They're at the same level, all right? President Ikeda, the Buddha who has awakened to Nam-myoho Renge-kyo unfailingly carries out bodhisattva practices to lead all people to enlightenment. The 4 bodhisattvas represent these bodhisattva practices. Okay, but we're all bodhisattvas of the earth, correct? As such, then what are we in reality? Buddhas who have come here to do what? Do Kosen-rufu. So now let me read you that sentence again. The Buddha who is awakened to Nam-myoho Renge-kyo unfailingly carries out bodhisattva practices to lead all people to enlightenment.
Right.
So that's all we're doing.
Yes.
Each one of us. That's all we're doing.
Yes.
The 4 bodhisattvas represent, it's not like superior practices and boundless practices and perfect practices and firmly established practices. Again, they represent these bodhisattva practices that we in reality carry out moment by moment. Right? The reason superior practices, boundless practices, pure practices, and firmly established practices, I got them all right that time, all have practices in their names is that they express the wisdom of enlightenment as actual conduct. Whoa! What did that just say? This doesn't have a goddamn thing to do about what you think or say. This has to do with what you do. What you do was what makes you a bodhisattva of the earth. It makes you equal to all this. All this is happy talk in the absence of that. The reason superior practices, boundless practices, pure practices, and firmly established practices all have practices in their names is that they express the wisdom of enlightenment. We also ascertain this wisdom of enlightenment. It says, time to get after it, time to do that thing, time to fulfill my mission for Kosen Rufu. Nothing else is really important anymore. You don't chant about benefits at that point in time. Sure, you have obstacles you need to overcome. But you're not in it for what's in it for you anymore. You're in it to pay back this, I can never pay back debt, right? That is to say, they exhibit actions that are superior, boundless, pure, and unwavering, based on boundless life force that is one with Myoho Rengekyo, what you do yourself. Saito, in the section of the record of the orally transmitted teachings that deals with the emerging from the earth chapter, Nichiren Daishonin, citing a passage from the supplement to the words and phrases of the Lotus Sutra, correlates the 4 bodhisattvas with the 4 virtues of eternity, happiness, true self, and purity. President Ikeda, the 4 virtues can be said to indicate a state of life that is forever eternity, secure, true self, refreshed, purity, and joyful, happiness. And I'm going to stop there on page 170. The top. I'm stopping in the middle of his points, but we've done this long enough. I'll get this done in 3 sections, no problem. Now I got my 10 pages in
Okay.
for all that. Okay, so
Okay.
again, see you all on
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.